That was a very ugly game that we just watched from our Detroit Pistons. And I mean, if you did end up watching the whole thing, first of all, kudos to you because that was a throwback to when basketball had some really bad offenses. To kind of keep it in perspective, the Pistons only scored 81 points tonight, which is like kind of by far their lowest output of the season. The previous low, they scored 89 in a loss to Chicago. But 81 points tonight, and it caps off, or doesn't cap off because it's still going, obviously, but just a really bad stretch of basketball for the Pistons after they won, they won 4 or 5 games, 5 or 7 games, and now they've lost 7 of the last 8. So all of those kind of like good graces and working their way back up in the standings in the East to where they were actually slotted in the AC for one point. And, now it just kind of all comes tumbling back down. And tonight they're obviously shorthanded. Still no Reggie Jackson, no Blake Griffin, no Luke Kennard, no Markieff Morris. So you expect it, and Utah is just a place where Detroit traditionally doesn't ever play well. But tonight it was really probably the ugliest game of the seasons that the Pistons did play. And, surprisingly enough, they were actually leading at halftime. They were only leading by 1, but Utah was playing just as bad of a game as Detroit was through 2 quarters. It was 40-39. Pistons were leading, and you thought, maybe if they could win, they could, they only had to score 85, 90 points, something like that. Did not end up happening. Utah got pretty hot there in the second half, and the Pistons continued to shoot. It's probably their worst shooting game of the season. I'd feel very comfortable saying that. They only shot 38% from the floor, and they shot 28% from three-point range, and they only took 14 three-pointers, which is not a lot. And it's from a team who, for a lot of the year, has been at the very top of the NBA in three-point percentage. And I think like they're top 10-ish in three-point attempts. And tonight there was just not any of that. With that being said, there's really not any standout players tonight. One thing that you like to see is Derrick Rose was still, effective in his role. He scored 20 points off the bench. And then Christian Wood, who, you hope at least continues to develop, even if the season does tank. You want to see your young guys just get better. And he had 11 points, 9 boards, so almost a double-double there. Other than that, the Pistons really relied on Andre Drummond tonight, and kind of more or less he didn't come through. He had 7 turnovers. He did have 5 steals and 3 blocks, which he's active on the defensive end, but he's giving the ball over just as much as he was making plays on the defensive end. And then 19 points and 13 rebounds, which for kind of anybody else is a really good game. And for Drummond, it's just kind of run of the mill. So. From the Utah end of it, there wasn't really anybody that killed the Pistons. Gobert had 19 boards, which you don't like to see. And then Donovan Mitchell, the should have been Piston, although I'll never kill them for taking Luke Kennard over Donovan Mitchell. He didn't shoot particularly well from the floor, but he did. He was able to score 23 points off of the strength of going 8 for 8 from the line. So if you're still on the Donovan Mitchell should have definitely been the pick ahead of Luke Kennard camp, then seeing him score 23 points in a game that the Jazz ended up winning by 23 probably stings a little bit something extra. But the Pistons were just absolutely dominated in the second half. They were cold offensively really all night. And when you thought that they could make it a game, and because they were winning for technically most of the game, they were ahead, but when you thought maybe they could win an ugly game and, again, only score 85, 90 points, maybe pull out like a 90-87 victory, something like that. The Jazz obviously had different plans in the second half, and the Pistons were still on the mindset of maybe we can only score 80 points and win. But, again, 81 points that they scored, the lowest of the year for them, so the worst offensive output of the season. And when you look at some of the pieces that they don't have, even if you're without Luke Kennard and you're without Blake Griffin, those are 2 of your better offensive options, 2 of your better players, scoring options, really whatever you want to call them. You still have a roster full of NBA players, and there's no excuse to basically average only 20 points a quarter. But let's get to kind of some of what you guys are saying. Albert Lou says that cold shooting in the second half doomed them, plus those costly turnovers. Yeah, Pistons had a lot of dumb turnovers. I mean, we just went through Drummond, who had 7 himself. But, Tim Frazier, who got the start tonight because of how shorthanded the Pistons were, had 4 turnovers of his own. And as a team, they had 17, which is, a lot. It's a lot of times that you're giving the ball over to the other team. And, it's especially critical and killer in the second half when the game is close, right? When the score's 40-39 at halftime and neither team is able to really get anything to go. Neither team is able to get any easy buckets. And then you're giving the ball over and you're allowing fast break points. You're allowing possessions where you're down. It's 3-on-2 coming down. They kick it to the corner and get a 3, something like that. Those end up, even if the game was closer, those are really the plays that end up kind of being backbreakers at the end. And the Pistons just gave up way too many of those and then got really hardly any in the second half. They had a couple of them in the first half, but again, they just weren't able to get anything to fall. Is it Judah? I'm sorry, sir. I don't know how to pronounce your name, although I do like it. It looks like it's Judah Ode. It looks like, or sounds like you should be in the NFL draft or something. But he says that Blake is always hurt and that the Pistons need to trade him. I'm getting fully more on board with Team Tank as the season goes along. You're about halfway through the season now. You're 34 games in, and 41 marks the halfway point of an 82-game season. And you're really not close to anything. And your team hasn't shown any type of progress outside of one stretch where you won 5 of 7 games. Other than that, it's been a lot of losses and a lot of losses to some bad teams. And they are only 2.5 games out of the 8th seed right now. But if you have the pieces, you have Blake Griffin, you have Andre Drummond, you have Reggie Jackson to see just kind of what you can get for him, although he has to get on the court to be able to display really what he can do. And he, of course, hasn't been able to do that. Then, it might just be at a point where you have to sell. So you're not going to get a lot for Blake right now because Blake's been terrible this year. And, to his credit, to the commenter's credit, Mr. Ode, Jude. Yeah, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Obviously, it just comes up. To his credit, Blake is always hurt. So you have the injury factored in with the fact that this guy just isn't playing well. And his buying price would be at the lowest it is right now. But in a weird way, that might also make his selling price the highest. So the reason you wouldn't be able to trade Blake is because his contract is terrible. But the reason you might be able to trade him now is if another team can get such a low return for him that the contract makes sense for them to end up just paying it out. And, you don't have to give up anything and you get a piece potentially that puts you over the top. The Miami Heat have been a team that have long been just kind of rumored and connected, and it's a team that makes sense that could add a guy like Blake Griffin there. And, during even the preseason, there were a lot of trades that you saw that included like Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero. And right now, if you're the Heat, you have to be thinking maybe you can get Blake Griffin without giving up either one of those guys because he's just been playing so bad. And if the Pistons are in a spot where they just want to get rid of Blake and it doesn't matter really what the price is, even if the price is lower than their floor price for Blake, if they end up just deciding, hey, we don't even want this guy on our team anymore, we're going to get rid of him for whatever. Obviously, they're going to field the best offers available, but if the best offers are all really, really low balls, then that's kind of where I could see Blake Griffin end up getting moved. And I don't think Detroit fans would like the return, but I think, just as the organization goes, if they do decide to tank, I don't think you're getting a lot for Blake Griffin right now because he has been hurt and he's played. He's really just played like dog shit this year. He says, I also want to see Sekou play. I think we all want to see Sekou play, and that probably is the play for the Pistons if they end up tanking. Then there'd be no reason not to get Sekou on the floor. I understand if you're trying to go for it and get into the thick of the playoffs and things like that, not playing them because he is only 18 years old and is just not he's really not ready to be in the NBA. And you took him as a guy that you could develop through the years, and you didn't expect him to contribute right away. But if you are tanking and then you get rid of Blake and you get rid of guys that would kind of eat at his minutes, obviously, then I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be on the floor. I'd like to see him play. I just want to see what he can do. But I totally understand the Pistons not playing them right now because it seems like they're still in a position to where they just want to get healthy and then kind of see where the standings shake out from there. Because as bad as they've been, they're 12-22, which is a horrible record. Again, they're still only 2.5 games out of the A seed in the Eastern Conference. So I can definitely see them also thinking, hey, when we get Luke back, once we get Reggie back, once we get Blake back, we're definitely better than the teams ahead of them right now, the A seed and kind of below them. I just had it. Oh, it was on the wrong page. But the Hornets, the Bulls, and the Magic. So my guess would be that the Pistons feel like they're better than those teams if they have even a semblance of a full squad and a full roster together. But yeah, I do really like the questions, and we'll probably talk more. If you guys are regular Pistons fans, we do this after most of their games. I'm not going to say every game because that's a lie, and there are just some games that I'm not able to get to. But we do this after not only Pistons games, but Lions games, trying to do some after college basketball. But as the sports schedule opens up and less is going on, that'll probably be at a higher frequency, obviously. And if you like what you're hearing, definitely go ahead and give that Sports Carnage podcast link in the description to click and find out, kind of what we got going on. We haven't talked a whole lot of basketball yet. That's just with all the football going on. But as football comes to an end, we're definitely going to be getting more basketball in there. So if you're just a basketball junkie like me, and it's been really hard not to talk about NBA on the podcast, I'm definitely going to make sure that ends up happening sometimes in the future, but those come out on Thursday. So if you guys are interested in any of that, or you just want something to listen to, definitely make sure you check out the Sports Carnage podcast because we enjoy doing things like this for you. And then we should have a really cool one on, I think Friday is maybe when the first NFL games kick off. Was it Friday, the January 3rd? Should be that. And we have something cool coming for you guys. So I'm really excited about it. And then we'll actually probably end up announcing that on the podcast, would be my guess, after we get all the logistics planned out. Well, the games are on Saturday, so maybe it'll be something before that. But regardless, I'm very excited about just what we got going on. Other than that, on the Pistons, there's not. And sorry, just got a long, rambling, shameless plug there, but I hope you guys don't mind. Other than that, as far as the Pistons go, again, not something that you want to see with them losing. And 12-22, 4-12 on the road. Again, tonight, their worst offensive performance of the season as far as points scored, 81, which is 8 worse, which is, kind of a hell of a lot of points than their previous low, 89 that they scored against the Bulls. And then their next game, you really don't have a lot of hope that they're going to win, considering it is at the Clippers, who are one of the best 3 teams in the NBA right now, even if it's not necessarily record-wise, although I think they might be. Regardless, the Clippers are just a really solid NBA team, and the Pistons have to go on the road there, even though they're going to be without Patrick Beverley. They're still going to have Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. So that's a loss that you definitely foresee coming the Pistons' way. And it just moves them further down the standings, but it also might move them further up the tanking ladder. So as far as just kind of as the season progresses along and the Pistons are, if they get to a point where they're just so far back that they can't do anything, and there's no point bringing up kind of what they can do to make the playoffs. The tone of these videos will definitely change, going to, you know, what you saw in the game. But, you know, I'm sure there's going to be way more questions about, like, trades and free agency, signings, tanking draft picks, everything else that the Pistons can do. You know, kind of a lot like we had, you know, with the Lions videos as they started to go from 3-4-1 all the way to they had 3-12-1, something like that. So, you know, there's a lot more draft talk. There's a lot more, you know, again, just who they can target, what you want to see them do in the offseason. And it's something that, you know, you hope you can get some value there because their season, you know, if it does end up going down the tubes, and right now definitely with the streak that they're on, and then the next game that they have to play, you think it's probably not something that's, you know, probably not something that's, you know, they'll be able to turn around. Albert says Golden State might be beatable, so the Pistons might have a chance on this road trip. Well, if it is like the whole West road trip, yeah, it is. So Clippers at the California teams, basically, aside from, it doesn't look like Sacramento's in here, but at Clippers, at Warriors, and then at Lakers. You figure you're going to lose to the Clippers and the Lakers. I know it's the NBA, and sometimes you can catch a key team on and off night and win, just like the Wizards, did to the Heat today, where they ended up beating them by 20. You probably should beat Golden State, but obviously it's not a guarantee because Golden State's really bad, but right now the Pistons are playing really bad too, and you still don't know if they'll Blake Griffin. You still don't know if they'll have Luke Kennard, and if they played the entire season without Blake and without Luke, you know, the Warriors are sitting at like at 9-25 right now. The Pistons are only at 12-22. So if the Pistons didn't have Blake and Luke, they're probably way closer to a 9-win team or even an 8-win team than they are a 12-win team. So if this is the lineup that you're trotting out there against the Warriors, I think that game's probably like a 50-50 ball, honestly. But that's really what we have for you guys tonight. Again, wish we could bring better news to you after most of these games, but the Pistons keep losing, and I really can't change that. I can just wear my teal hat and root for the best. But that's what we have. Again, check out that Sports Carnage podcast if you guys haven't. If you're watching this on YouTube, we'll have links in the description. If you're on Facebook, right now, here live at 11:45 Eastern time, click the blue link. You can find us on Podbean and then Apple Podcasts from there. Google us. All of our pages should pop up. Again, Sports Carnage podcast. You're not going to get confused that it's anybody else. But yeah, go ahead and take a look. Obviously, listen to the podcast if it suits you. If you don't, really no hard feelings. But that's what we have for tonight. And then subscribe to our channels as well. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all of that. But good night, and thank you guys for listening. We should see you again if probably after the Michigan-Alabama game is the next time, because the Pistons don't play again until I think it's January 2nd. But I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be doing one there as well, although that game is probably late as hell. So if you guys do end up staying with me, then this is just a pre-game thank you. But good night. Have a safe New Year's Eve, because it's almost New Year's Eve. Happy New Year. All of that.